Dear students, now the topic of the day is effective communication skills. We know how in these days of internet revolution, communication skills have become a very important word. It has become a buzzword. And apart from your domain knowledge, you have to develop communication skills. Communication skills are also part of soft skills. Although the very term soft skills sounds very simple, it is not so simple. In fact, soft skills are very hard to learn. And no matter how much knowledge you acquire in your domain, when you go into your profession, you have to showcase your soft skills. It has been found out in survey that the success of a professional depends to the extent of 88% on his emotional quotient and only 15% on his IQ or knowledge. So it is imperative on our part to develop some communication skills and soft skills apart from our domain knowledge. In the present class, I would go through the meaning of communication skills, what are the various types, and the process of communication, and the various factors, and also essentials in communication. What are the do's and don'ts? What should we do in order to develop our communication skills? And what are the things we should not attempt to do? All these things I will take up. And also briefly about presentation skills, writing, and body language. I will not go deeply into those latter topics because there can be special sessions on those topics. Now, next slide, please. Kishore, next slide. Barriers and challenges to communication. What is communication? See, this we can think of it, right? Communication, the very word has come from a Latin term communicare, which means to impart or to share knowledge. So nowadays the industry, look at this quote, right? What does the industry say regarding communication skills? I.M. Ross, President AT&T Bell Labs, says the ability to speak and write clearly is not only important to the communication of technical concepts, it is an essential part of the innovation process itself. So today, the most important skill is innovation, apart from soft skills, which is all part of like time management, stress management, negotiation skills. Innovation has come to be recognized as the most important skill. And translating an idea into written word is one of the better ways of validating the soundness of one's thinking. Okay, you have a lot of ideas, then how can you translate them into language and communication? That is the most important thing. T.S. Eliot, the English poet, says, where is knowledge we have lost information, and where is wisdom we have lost in knowledge. These days we know there is a flood of information around us, right? There is no depth of information. The problem is what to access and what to read and how to pass information and how to deliver the required things to the clients or the people outside. So it has been imperative on your part to know and learn and master communication skills. Shakespeare says some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. When it comes to communication skills, don't get a misimpression that one is a born communicator, one is a good communicator by birth, right? Definitely everybody can learn. These skills are learnable. These skills are teachable. If you put in the sufficient efforts, you can certainly become one of the masters of communication. You can become a good communicator. You can become an effective communicator. And as Andrea Rutherford says, your knowledge is as valuable as your ability to communicate someone else. Yes, you have numerous ideas. You have myriad ideas in your mind. But if you are not able to translate them into words, and if you are not able to disseminate that knowledge, then the outside world cannot know your depth. It has no time or patience to look into your brain and see how knowledgeable you are. So you have to, every day you have to learn these skills afresh. It's not that you will learn for some time and then leave them at the side. You have to hone your skills every day. There is virtually no end. As learning is lifelong learning, as we have come to know similarly, you have to upgrade or hone your communication skills, soft skill every day. But virtually there is no end. Next slide, please, Kishore. Look at the very definition of communication, right? It is the art of transmitting information, ideas, attitudes, and values from one person to another. And it is the process of meaningful interaction among human beings. So what do we communicate? We communicate our ideas, thoughts, feeling, attitudes, and values also. Our national leaders, they have communicated the legacy of Indian national movement for us, right? Similarly, several Jubilee and seniors, they have been communicating the values to juniors. Tomorrow, you also have to communicate the values which we stand for. In these values, we should not think in a binary fashion like Eastern versus Western values, right? We have something to teach the West, and we also can learn some things from the Western countries. And this entire thing is a meaningful interaction, and it occurs among human beings, right? So it's a personal process. Although we use these various means of electronics and online resources, it's not an impersonal thing. Entire communication is a personal thing. It's from person to person, or many persons, or hundreds of thousands of persons. So it also has an emotional component, but mainly, right, as students, we also transmit, right, facts, ideas, thoughts, attitude, etc. And it involves change in behavior. Why do we communicate? We have some purpose in mind. When you communicate something to people, you want them to change in their action. Unless you affect change in the behavior of the receiver, your communication is not successful. For example, there has been a man who is not doing his duty. Many of his colleagues told him to go on working and to do his duty, but he has been neglecting it. At the end, the boss calls him and says, unless you do this task, you will be fired from the job. Then the person has done the task given. Then the boss asked him, why have you not done this task earlier? And he told the boss, sir, now I have realized the consequence of my inaction. So every communication, every piece of communication tries to affect some change in behavior. Otherwise, every speech can go over the heads of the listeners. And it is also a means to influence people. We find many great leaders, right? Our nationals like Gandhi, Nehru, Patel, Ambedkar, or many other leaders, right? They are very influential speakers, and they use language to influence the people. During the Second World War, the Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of UK, he galvanized English language to mobilize the people, use language to mobilize the people to fight against Hitler. Communication is also a process of, it has a component of emotion also. It's not merely transmission of facts, which are not always lively, right? So both of these components are there, and a tool for controlling and motivating people also. That happens, right, when we observe the speeches of politicians, right? Sometimes they give right information, sometimes they give misinformation, and during the wartime we don't get really correct information. It's called disinformation campaign. But so communication is so powerful that it can be used effectively as a tool for controlling and motivating people. If you remember the case of Hitler, right, he tried to use communication to control the people, whereas our leaders, they used communication to motivate the people. They used English language. That was a language which could be understood by our ex-rulers. So we learned how to speak in their own language, and we also learned how to pay back in the same coin. So the English people who did not care for other fighting people in other colonies, they had no answer to the arguments put forth by our nationalists like Gokhale, Mahatma Gandhi, right, Nehru, Patel, and many other, Subhash Chandra Bose, and many other leaders. And look at this process of communication. We'll go into it, right? Communication process definitely involves two parties, sender and receiver. The sender definitely has a message, and he encodes it in the language. And the other end of the process, you find receiver. Now you are receivers of this message, right? I am sending my ideas in English language, and you are listening to those words, and you are decoding their meaning, and you are trying to make sense of them, those words. So it means communication process involves transmission of meaning and understanding. And still you find there are some barriers in communication. The medium of communication, it may be through verbal or non-verbal medium. It may be oral or written form or non-verbal thing. Or in another manner, it can be directly speaking to you, or through electronic media, or through microphone, or through online resources such as these things, right? These devices. But while in the process of communication, which is a flow, you can also find some barriers. We can go to the barriers at the end of the lecture, not now. But let me say that the very process of communication does not end unless the sender receives the feedback. It is very, very important. Response is very important from the receivers. So it is not simply giving a lecture to students or to the audience, but unless I receive some kind of response from you in one form or another, I cannot consider this communication process is very complete. And then there are many, next slide please. Okay, these barriers are there, right? Physical barriers and all those things. I will go into it later on. Next, look at this, the communication process, right? Next one, please. Next slide, Kishore. Ideation. This ideation means formation of idea, selection of message, right? I have some ideas and I have some topic ideas to convey to you. And this topic is in a formal situation. Ideation may consist of finding and selecting a topic. And encoding. This information is encoded in selected language, that is common language. English is one of the official languages. It's a lingua franca among different provinces of India. Right. So if I speak in Tamil or Hindi or some other language, I may not be able to reach you really. So selection of common language like English, which goes well in India, and also medium. And I'm speaking to you, right? When I speak to you, I want to reach to you personally. I am sending some message, right? So that, right, you can follow or you can understand what my words and also decode the meaning. And when it comes to writing, when you read and understand written message, then that is one way of encoding the writing language. Non-verbal communication is there, like gestures, eye contact, and postures, and also distances. So how much distance do you have to maintain? You should not go more than 150 with distance in any other person. That means you are including into the intimate zone. You have to maintain 4 feet distance with anybody. Really, in a public space, you can maintain 12 feet distance. But today, because of pandemic, you know how we are supposed to maintain 6 feet distance with from each other, right? So this shows even non-verbal language gets changed. If you look at handshake was once, right, very popular gesture. Now it is almost outdated gesture, and namaskar, it has become the popular gesture these days. In fact, if you find it surprising to know that handshake was given in the ancient days to prove to the other party that the person was not carrying any weapons. So non-verbal communication also has relation to culture. It changes from one culture to another culture. So when I take up topic in days to come regarding non-verbal communication, cross-cultural communication, I will dwell at length on that topic. Suffice it to say regarding the medium and all selected language. And the third thing is an appropriate communication form. What is the appropriate form? Can I speak simply face to face, or should I go for a webinar or seminar like this, or should I send an email, or should I pick up the phone and call you? Suppose you have to reach someone instantly. How do you do? The best thing is to pick up your phone, mobile, and talk to other person. When you have to, sometimes you can use email, but there is also etiquette of email. So if someone writes to your email, you have to respond minimum within 2 days and write briefly. You cannot write as in the case of formatters. So all these things are there, right? Regarding ideation, encoding, and the transmission is another thing. Who are the audience in technical communication? The audience could be managers, co-workers, customers, and clients, and the general public, or any combination. So when you join a profession, right, you have to interact not only internally. If you interact internally, it is called internal communication. But interact with managers or co-workers or clients outside your firm, it is called external communication. What is the purpose of this communication? You communicate to inform, or to explain, or to describe, or to persuade or convince, or record your actions. So communication has different purposes. Right? When you are general manager of company, you want to inform people, or the shareholders about the development of the company over the quarter. And sometimes you have to describe. Sometimes if you are a team leader, you have to convince your team members to do the tasks on time and meet the deadlines. And the format also can change. These days, right, formatting has become very important. It is not what you say that is important, it is how you say it, how you present the information. So when you prepare proposals or lab reports or part specifications, you have to follow the proper format of documents. Documentation has become very, very important these days, so you have to also master the formatting documents or preparation of documents. Similarly, record keeping forms are there, service reports, travel and expense forms, etc. Instructions. You may have to write a user guide or training manuals, etc. And you have to communicate with your colleagues, seniors, and also clients through letters and memos. Right? Sorry for typo there. Memos are emails. So all these forms of communication there. Kishorji, now I request you to show the video, right? Change the world video, please show it for some time. So you observe our army people, right? And naval navy people, they undergo rigorous training. Similarly, right, you also have to undergo rigorous training in case of communication skills that will stand in good stead. You can go through the, right, thick and thin, or you can, right, you can accomplish your tasks. Please watch this.
If you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. To pass SEAL training, there are a series of long swims that must be completed. One is the night swim. Before the swim, the instructors joyfully brief the students on all the species of sharks that inhabit the waters off San Clemente. They assure you, however, that no student has ever been eaten by a shark, at least not that they can remember. But you are also taught that if a shark begins to circle your position, stand your ground. Do not swim away. Do not act afraid. And if the shark, hungry for a midnight snack, darts towards you, then summons up all your strength and punch him in the snout, and he will turn and swim away. There are a lot of sharks in the world. If you hope to complete the swim, you will have to deal with them. So if you want to change the world, don't back down from the sharks. Over a few weeks of difficult training, my SEAL class, which started with 150 men, was down to just 42. There were now 6 boat crews of 7 men each. I was in the boat with the tall guys, but the best boat crew we had was made up of the little guys, the Munchkin crew, we called them. No one was over 5'5". The Munchkin boat crew had 1 American Indian, 1 African American, 1 Polish American, 1 Greek American, 1 Italian American, and 2 tough kids from the Midwest. They out-paddled, outran, and outswam all the other boat crews. The big men in the other boat crews would always make good-natured fun of the tiny little flippers the Munchkins put on their tiny little feet prior to every swim. But somehow these little guys from every corner of the nation and the world always had the last laugh, swimming faster than everyone and reaching the shore long before the rest of us. SEAL training was a great equalizer. Nothing mattered but your will to succeed, not your color, not your ethnic background, not your education, not your social status. If you want to change the world, measure a person by the size of their heart, not by the size of their flippers. The 9th week of training is referred to as Hell Week. It is 6 days of no sleep, constant physical and mental harassment, and 1 special day at the Mud Flats. The Mud Flats are an area between San Diego and Tijuana where the water runs off and creates the Tijuana Sloughs, a swampy patch of terrain where the mud will engulf you. It is on Wednesday of Hell Week that you paddle down in the mud flats and spend the next 15 hours trying to survive the freezing cold, the howling wind, and the incessant pressure to quit from the instructors. As the sun began to set that Wednesday evening, my training class, having committed some egregious infraction of the rules, was ordered into the mud. The mud consumed each man till there was nothing visible but our heads. The instructors told us we could leave the mud if only 5 men would quit. Only 5 men, just 5 men, and we could get out of the oppressive cold. Looking around the mud flat, it was apparent that some students were about to give up. It was still over 8 hours till the sun came up. 8 more hours of bone-chilling cold. The chattering teeth and the shivering moans of the trainees were so loud, it was hard to hear anything. And then one voice began to echo through the night. One voice raised in song. The song was terribly out of tune, but sung with great enthusiasm. One voice became 2, and 2 became 3, and before long, everyone in the class was singing. The instructors threatened us with more time in the mud if we kept up the singing, but the singing persisted, and somehow the mud seemed a little warmer, and the wind a little tamer, and the dawn not so far away. If I have learned anything in my time traveling the world, it is the power of hope. The power of one person, a Washington, a Lincoln, King, Mandela, and even a young girl from Pakistan, Malala. One person can change the world by giving people hope. So if you want to change the world, start each day with a task completed. Find someone to help you through life. Respect everyone. Know that life is not fair and that you will fail often. But if you take some risks, step up when the times are the toughest, face down the bullies, lift up the downtrodden, and never ever give up. If you do these things, the next generation and the generations that follow will live in a world far better than the one we have today. And what started here will indeed have changed the world for the better.
We are talking about communication skills. Jandhyala must be presenting. I'm not going into subject matter, but I want to add a point Jandhyala can take again.
Okay.
Communication has to reach the last man. It depends not only on presenter's ability or knowledge, but our, what you call in our Telugu, yasa antam. Different places have got different types of dialects and types of speech method. That is why even when going in English also, when you are going to US and other places, they called a hearing test. Okay, yeah. So that one of these is listening ability also. You please, if you are not focused, please focus on listening abilities and practicing by listening to radio of different kinds of stations or their dialect or what other word I am not getting. Pronunciation. The pronunciations of different people will be different. It may not reach to everyone. So they have to give an average pronunciation. That is what I wanted to say, and as an addition or a supplement, or if not covered.
Thank you. I think we are now ready, sir. I will present the slide again, and you can tell me what to do. Present next, sir.
So, with regard to Ramchandra's point, I will go into it. Definitely, those people who watched this speech understand how much rigorousness is required in order to achieve some tasks or goals. And what is leadership? Leadership means taking a leap in the dark, right? That is how it is defined. A leader, one has leader as well as a follower. These days, one can't simply expect to be leader always. One should also be follower if necessary. And a leader is always a person who can see ahead and go ahead, even though fog is there before his eyes, he would make some way. So definitely, Any leader worth his salt would rally his people, would create some new idea, would lead his people, not mislead his people, right? For example, Hitler misled his people during the Second World War. He was a great speaker. He used to sway the audience. But then leadership qualities were not in the interest of his country. Whereas the leadership qualities of Churchill or Nehru or Gandhi, these people used to galvanize Indians to fight for freedom. Regarding pronunciation, I want to tell, one has to listen to more and more language. Language can be learned more by listening more and more, right? Or students can listen to the news on BBC channel. In fact, after my education, I used to listen to BBC news for 1 hour in the morning and also 1 hour in the evening, every day. For 1 or 2 years, I have listened to those news broadcasts in order to improve my pronunciation. It's quite possible because people hail from different regions, they carry different accents, and it would be difficult for them to understand the speaker's accent at times. In fact, intermediate, when I was studying in Nagarjuna Residential College, one Nobel Prize winner, John Hicks, came. He was a Nobel Prize winner in economics, and he gave a speech in American accent, which I could understand even a single word, even though I thought my English was good enough at that time. So these things happen. So students have to lend their ears. Students have to give more practice to themselves by watching news on the TV or right other media to improve their pronunciation. Okay, I will go into it later on. Next slide, Kishore.
Yes, sir. And just as Ramchandran said, listening skills, reading, writing, and reading skills, writing skills, listening skills. What else? There are 4 skills. Comprehension also. So that is how you will write IELTS and TOEFL exams. And I will just
that is talking skill, speaking
right. You're right. Sure.
Next slide.
Next slide. Yeah, I go to the next slide.
So these communication skills, they comprise these 4 skills. It's called acronym MSRW: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. All these skills have to be mastered. You may think, why should we listening? We have listening so many things since our childhood. No. If you watch debates on our TV channels, you can find how people don't know how to listen. Right? Never follow the pattern of debates on our TV channels. Your English channels, right? English channels with reference to I'm speaking. There, people don't allow others to speak completely. They cut others in the mid-sentence. That is not the way. So listening has to be learned as a skill. Similarly, reading skills have to be improved. And writing skill has been undermined in our education system for a very long time. Then you have to learn how to write a paragraph, an essay, or a report that you can learn in the days to come, whenever there is a possibility to address you. And spoken English, that also comes through constant practice. Practice makes man perfect, man or woman perfect, right? To speak politically correct language, practice makes human perfect. So nothing comes easily to us. Everything has to be learned through hard way or smart way. And smart way does not mean simply bypassing things or doing more things in less time. Smart way means smart thinking and smart work means to plan very well and to do tasks within the time and to delegate what you cannot do. That is also very important when you are a team leader. Next slide, Kishore. Okay, what are the essentials, right? What are do's of communication is very, very important for all of you, dear students. Always think ahead about what you are going to say. So don't believe, right, in the methods of spontaneity. No doubt when you are talking to people formally, you can be spontaneous. But when you are speaking formally, or even when you are speaking over phone to your seniors, you have to think what you are going to say in advance. Otherwise, right, you may say something which is not palatable to the other party. So never go spontaneously to phone or right, any other means of communication. Whenever you have something important to say, think ahead and use simple words and phrases. Usually we think that we have to use bombastic words, right, or highbrow words. It's not necessary. Communication is very, very important. So communication implies the use of simple words. Suppose you are talking to technical people, you can use technical language or technical jargon. But when you are speaking to common people, you have to use simple language. Suppose you are speaking to your parents or siblings in your house. Do you use high flow language or technical language? They may not get it. So whenever you communicate with laymen in the street or common people, you have to use simple language. And let me tell you, it is most difficult to use simple language. And it is the easiest thing to use difficult language. Once I had a lecture by Srinivas Iyengar. He spoke so well. I was in MA at that time. He came to Nagarjuna University, and kindly our lecturers arranged a meeting with him, and he spoke so well that anybody, even though one could understand much English, one could get the entire meaning of his speech. So it is very difficult to use simple language, and you need to learn. For that, your vocabulary must be very high. Next, increase your knowledge in all subjects. Don't just confine to your only domain, your area of knowledge. You learn current affairs. You have to improve your general knowledge. These days, interviews, they focus more on your general knowledge or knowledge of current affairs. They don't just want to test you on your domain knowledge. So, because things have been changing very fast, particularly if you're IT field, you have to know what is happening in the outside world, how you have to remold yourselves. Nowadays, we are working from home. It has been unthought of and unheard of in earlier days. Now everybody has to get tuned to this kind of new mode of communication. So you have to learn these new skills. You have to constantly upgrade your skills and speak clearly and audibly. This is also another important point which I want to dwell. Many students, whenever they speak in group discussions or interview, they do not speak clearly or audibly. The chairman may put a question to you, but your answers must be addressed to all the members of the panel. So be audible, be clear, and don't get carried away by the notion that you have to speak very fast in the name of fluency. In fact, if you listen to many English speakers, you find that they speak very slowly and intelligibly. But in case of Indians, right, we are somewhat self-conscious, so we give extra importance to fluency, and we speak too fast, which is not required. Intelligibility is everything. Next, always pay full attention to the speaker while listening. So you are a listener, then don't get distracted. Don't go into internal chatter, and don't think of what you are going to do tomorrow. And you watch the speaker totally, his verbal and non-verbal communication, so that you can get most out of the lecture or any presentation. And don't try to contradict. First listen, and then definitely your rational mind is on the work. At the same time, you have to listen very well, listen between the lines, and you have to understand the main points and the meaning of the points given. And if you fail to grasp any point, you can ask for clarification. Ask for clarification if you have failed to grasp others' point of view. That is very, very important. Communication means basically to understand others' point of view, others' frame of reference. Suppose you have connected idea to public sector. Unless you know how the viewpoint of other people, you can't agree with other party on any point. So try to understand the framework of other speaker. I mean reference frame, idea in all aspects. Next, please. What are the things we should not do, or we don't have to do? Don't use technical jargon. Already I have mentioned this topic. Don't bother. Whenever you communicate, use as simple language as possible, You stop using use familiar words. Don't use long words. Use small words, and also don't use unfamiliar words. Use familiar words. Don't speak abstractly, but speak concretely. So all these things are required. For example, you cannot say the company has made substantial loss. Substantial loss means, is it 10% or 20%, 30%? So be concrete. Similarly, don't use very big words, and do not speak too fast or slow. Too slow means be moderate. Moderation is very good, In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that you have to moderate in everything, in eating, sleeping, or speech. If you want to carry on yourselves with equilibrium of mind, you have to be moderate in all aspects. And next thing is, do not assume that everybody understands you. Usually the presenter is under misimpression that the audience understand him. I don't think all of you understand me totally or in the same manner as I want you to understand. So I have to find out whether you are able to follow or not. That is what you need to do if you are a speaker. because people come from different backgrounds, they have different experiences and different familiar factors. They operate at different financial conditions. Maybe some folks don't have smartphones, so I can't even reach them. And don't interrupt the speaker in the mid-sentence if you are listening. So listen totally or comprehensively and try to understand the meaning between the lines. As you said, right? Read between the lines, similarly you have to listen between the lines. All these things you have to not to some of the things, like not use explain jargon. Next, we go to presentation skills. A formal speech, presentation skills are very important for all of you. Whenever you join a job, right, you will be asked to present on your product, or about your company to the audience. Then it requires a planning, real planning. Planning goes more than half the way. You have to plan, you have to prepare, and rehearsal if necessary. Don't think rehearsal is right, something which you can avoid and present straight away. Suppose there is a significant meeting, you have to plan early and prepare thoroughly and do rehearsal before you go onto the stage. And success in life, it depends on presenting ideas in an appropriate manner. So you have to find out what is the apt way. How can you convince people? The main purpose of communication, majorly is to persuade people. How can you persuade? You cannot be angry. You cannot be opinionated. You cannot be conceited. You have to present in a humble fashion. Okay, if necessary, you have to be assertive, but not aggressive. If you are aggressive, that means even a group discussion, other people may not like it. And you cannot monopolize your conversations. You have to allow other people to speak. All these things are necessary. Next slide, please. Kishorji.
Yes, sir.
Next, look at the eyes of audience and speak in natural and conventional voice. It's very, very important in presentation. Usually, we who come from Oriental countries, right, we avoid eye contact. No doubt, respecting others is a positive thing in our culture, but in Western culture, they give more importance to eye contact. If you avoid eye contact, they think you have something to hide. So, never avoid eye contact whenever you are speaking to people, either in a formal setting or informal manner. Maintain eye contact, definitely. And also, you work on your development of your suitable voice. Don't go in a monotone. You may have to change the modulation, everything. And after presentation, ask for questions. And also, you verify whether the audience understood whatever you are saying. Next, please. Written communication, right? This is also very, very important. Errors in writing circulars, reports, and agenda, they spoil the image of the writer. So, you are not just an individual, you are representing your firm or company. So, you have to take all the care, right? The punctuation matters. Punctuation definitely matters a lot these days. Even a comma or full stop can make or mar the effectiveness of your writing. Particularly when you write letters or reports, you have to take utmost care. The title must be free from any errors, and good visual presentation is required, because you can't present information blandly these days. You have to prepare in the proper manner of documentation. You can use photographs, graphs, so that they can really compensate the drabness of written material. You know how difficult it is to go through written material. Even notices are not read by people completely. So whenever you present a report, you have to add all these things like graphics, etc., to make your presentation more effective. And thinking, researching, organizing, and choosing words, reading for spelling and grammar. After preparation of report or letter, don't simply dash your letter to the client, or don't simply send your report to the audience, right, or your boss. You first revise. You edit your write-up for any mistakes with regard to spelling and grammar. It is very much essential. Okay, next. So that way, if you take care of your written communication skills, definitely it will improve the effectiveness. Next slide, Kishorji. Hearing versus listening is what I want to spell very briefly on this topic, because, okay, we have started about the importance of communication skills, and I talked about process types. I think I have not come across the slide. I missed it. I might have missed it. Hearing versus listening. Hearing is right a physical process. Involuntarily you are listening. Okay, because you are there, you are hearing to my voices. It may not be that doesn't show anything, any sense of understanding. But listening is an active thing. It is physical as well as mental process. You have to concentrate. The concentration, that is the essence of education, as Vivekananda says. Swami Vivekananda says, if you develop concentration, you can consider yourself as an educated person. You don't have to master thousands of ideas. Master 5 ideas. If you can master them thoroughly and put them into practice, you can consider yourself as educated. So let us not swayed by the spread of internet revolution or information revolution. No doubt, we should not remain uninformed or misinformed or disinformed. We have to improve our, we have to access various sources of information. At the same time, we have to give no less importance to mastery of ideas and presenting them or articulating them in the most effective manner possible. Next thing. Listening is hard, right? You must participate in the process of listening. Next thing. It's an elegant art. It reflects courtesy and good manners. Listening carefully to the instructions of superiors. It's required. Suppose your boss talking to you. You have to listen very carefully. It should be all ears. Otherwise, you can't ask him, sir, please tell again. That would reflect very badly on you. That shows you are distracted. And listening is, in fact, a means which improves, right? It is a thing which improves interpersonal communication. Who do you think your close friend? Who do you think your close friend is, right? The person who listens to you more and also uninterruptedly, the person who is sympathetic to you, you consider that fellow as your real close friend. It is really an active skills. Next thing, please. Now, barriers to communication. There are various barriers to communication. In fact, Mr. slide there in the middle, that's okay. That is up, briefly tell on that, right? Upward communication, right? Downward communication, etc. and horizontal communication. Downward communication means from executive to general chief executive to the person at the bottom, like maybe foreman or worker. Upward communication means that from subordinate to the higher ups, like any suggestion box, any notices, not notices, sorry, suggestion box and grievances, etc. Upward communication includes circulars, notices, instructions, all those things. And horizontal communication means people of same rank. So they exchange their ideas through horizontal communication. But these days, diagonal communication has been in the work. That means hierarchy has broken down. See, in the present days, you cannot maintain hierarchy as in the physical workplace, right? As we used to do. Now people can talk democratically. Now hierarchy has been broken. It has become more democratic, particularly during these pandemic times, particularly during the era of information. People of the team can speak to one another. That is the way. Now, leader is also a follower to an extent or others. So, no question of permanent hierarchy. Next is barriers to communication, right? This is very important. After that, right, I can show a video. Physical barriers are there. For example, you are staying too far from the speaker. You can't get the meaning of the words spoken. Or suppose you are on a railway platform. You want to listen to announcements. Then you find it difficult to follow the announcement at times because of too much noise. Because suppose you are in a crowded market, you can't really communicate. Temperature, no, in summer, difficulties to communicate. Suppose you don't have fan whirring above you. No, I am not, right? I have not switched on fan, so I feel somewhat discomfortable. But still, right, I have to go on. That is one barrier, but it can be surmountable. It is surmountable. The inappropriate medium. So what kind of medium you have to choose? Is it face-to-face communication, written communication, or, right, non-verbal communication? All these things you have to take care. Non-verbal communication also involves like distance and also nearness or timing. All those things we can go in depth into the non-verbal communication when we take up cross-cultural communication. And subjectivity is very important. Communication fails because, right, we are very subjective in many ways. we hear a lot about generation gap, right? The old people say the young people these days are not at all, right, obedient or socially conscious, etc. That is not correct. The young people these days are techno-savvy, they're very passionate, very smart, and also they are, right, they are also socially conscious, but they are working a different way. 20, 30 years back, students used to participate in some movements, but today they are also working through many NGOs. They are reaching out to the needy people. So, but the opinions are given by the elders that the young people are not very responsible. They roam a lot, obviously, because they are young people, they roam a lot, right? The middle-aged or the old people cannot roam a lot, are not supposed to roam a lot these days, particularly. So, the educational background is also, right, and a subjective factor. The difference between literate and illiterate, uneducated people. But many times our Indian voters have proved they are very wise people. So education is one of the factors which helps or hinders communication. And emotions really is another factor, right? When we are emotional, when we are angry, or when we are, right, overexcited or nervous, we cannot communicate our ideas freely. So it is necessary to develop emotional quotient or emotional intelligence. You have to curb your emotions, particularly in formal setting. When in excessive emotion, don't communicate. Silence is also one form of communication. That's why we said silence is golden, right? So when you are too angry, don't say too many words, either to your siblings or to spouse or to your boss, or dash a letter to him. You be cool for a while. Then when emotions subside, you can go back to your content of communication. So people are highly emotional, and so we can't communicate things. Particularly, for example, there is a national conflict with China. It is very difficult to communicate. During the I will go back to history and tell you, during the First World War, right, England and Germany found themselves on opposite sides. Every German was arrested by the English government, and every Englishman arrested by Germany. And even at that time, Bertrand Russell, he did not like the First World War, so he refused to participate in it. He called himself a conscientious objector, though he came from aristocratic class, though he was a great scholar by that time. He was arrested and spent a few weeks or months in jail. So emotionally, when emotionally people are charged, it is very difficult to reason with them. At that time, you have to bide for time. You have to know how to communicate properly. Similarly, language differences. We have to adopt a common language. If there are differences in languages, definitely we can't communicate with one another. So fortunately, we have English language in India. In fact, this is the legacy which our first Prime Minister has kept intact, right? One of the factors of one of the things from our legacy, British legacy. Because of that, we are able to excel in IT field. In fact, even English people wanted to ban French words, and French people wanted to ban English words, right, through their academies. And today, because of English language, we are able to communicate with one another across the provinces, across the countries. It has given it a huge advantage. And then cultural differences are there. Suppose you are a team leader, and you have team members from various backgrounds, one from America, another from Africa, another one from China, another one from Latin America. Then you have another a black man from, say, America. So you have to work all with these people in an egalitarian manner. Cultural differences, they play a lot of role in communication. One example is given regarding dowry. An Indian is talking to an Arabic man, and the Arabic man has remained unmarried even though he reached 40 years old. And Indian asked, why have you remained unmarried so far? The Arabic man replied, right, because of dowry. The Indian said, no, you should not be too greedy. The other person understand, why do you call me as greedy? But in our culture, right, dowry means what, right? Girl pays for, bride pays to the party of groom. It is the other way around in Arabic countries. So they have to pay mahar or something like that. So cultural differences, they do matter a lot. And in terms of non-verbal communication, even regarding English language also there are some differences, right? There are differences between English language of UK and American English. Similarly, Indian English and even American English. Poor listening skills is another barrier to communication. So, definitely, poor listening skills, they hamper our effectiveness of communication. In fact, it is said that 3/4 of the time managers spend in listening. The more you listen, the better communicator you become. In fact, Prime Minister, pragmatic Prime Minister, and whose birthday we're celebrating today, P.V. Narasimha, right? He was a great listener. You know how he used to listen to people before taking any decisions. So that is very much required. You have to hone your listening skills. In all these aspects, you have to take care to avoid barriers to communication. When you avoid barriers to communication, definitely you will be a successful communicator. Now I can stop here, right? There is one slide, I think, of non-verbal communication, which will take up later on, not necessary now. Kishore, can you show that video on Lara Jana's video? Then Sai Srinivas can speak for a while.
Sure.
That is 21st century. Wonderful, video I have found on soft skills for 21st century. What are the skills we require in 21st century? Not only world skills, right? Or 3 R's are just simply LSRW skills.
Around the world, everyone from governments and business leaders and economists to parents, teachers, and pediatricians are all asking the same question. What skills will our children need to succeed? Now, you may think you know the answer to the question, but consider this. It has been estimated that 2/3 of children today will work in jobs that don't currently exist. Now, what skills do you want them to have? In 2016, the World Economic Forum released a list that every parent, and quite honestly, anyone who cares about our children's future, needs. It's a list of the 21st century skills most valued in today's complex, globalized, and rapidly changing world. 1/3 of these skills are the traditional hard skills, the reading, writing, and arithmetic that I call IQ skills. More notable, however, are the other skills, social and creative skills like creativity, curiosity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking, along with grit, leadership, and adaptability. It is these so-called soft, non-cognitive, and other skills that are gaining prominence in playrooms, classrooms, and boardrooms around the world. Now, I feel the need to point out that calling these skills soft doesn't do them justice, and referring to them as non-cognitive is just wrong, given that they involve complex functioning of the brain. That leaves us with other. And as somebody who has spent decades translating facts and figures into practical information, I can assure you that if you ever want to convince somebody that something's really important, don't call it other. So I'd like to propose that we call these other skills key skills, spelled QI. Now, the fact that it sounds like the word key, as in K-E-Y, fits because these skills are certainly key to future success. Right? It also reflects the fact that they are the complement to the IQ skills, IQ and QI. And finally, the word key, sometimes also pronounced chi, has been used across cultures and centuries to represent a positive life force that you can be born with, but that can also be developed. And that brings us to perhaps the most important insight. Based on the science of early brain and child development, we now know that these key skills can be developed far earlier than most people realize. With 85% of brain growth thought to occur by age 3 and up to 1 million new neural connections forming per second, it is during the first 5 years that we have a unique opportunity to more intentionally build babies' brains and to assemble this toolkit of skills we know they'll need to succeed. Now, to help you better understand why these early years are so critical, I find it helpful to use the analogy of comparing the electrical wiring of the brain to that of a house. It is entirely possible to rewire an old house. It just always takes longer, costs more, and never turns out quite as good as when the wiring goes in before the walls go up. With respect to the wiring of babies' brains, caring, responsive adults play the role as chief architects. Neurons don't just connect, and babies don't just learn what they need to know all on their own. Unlocking children's early learning potential is deeply dependent on social interactions, which explains why cultivating the key skills involves a whole lot of talking, cooing, singing, playing, and reading books to babies. With that in mind, allow me to introduce you to the 7 key skills. The first of the key skills are me skills, defined by self-awareness, self-control, or impulse control, along with focus and attention. In other words, me skills are what allow us to be in control of our own thoughts, feelings, and actions. Now, to put me skills into a bigger picture perspective, just think about how often these days we hear about everything from mindfulness apps and mindful breathing to the introduction of chief mindfulness officers into corporate culture. Even renowned business visionary Peter Drucker predicted that while the 20th century was the era of business management, the 21st century is going to be the era of self-management. Right, and a good self-management day in the life of a toddler is when no one bites their friends. That's because the ability to resist one's impulses or urges is really dependent on impulse control, which happens to be one of the 3 defining features of what neuroscientists call executive function skills. What research now tells us about these all-important executive function skills is that they develop most rapidly between the ages of 3 and 5. After me skills come we skills. We skills are people skills, the relationship skills, like communication, collaboration, teamwork, active listening, empathy, and perspective taking, all needed to play well with others. We skills are especially valuable in a world where it's become as important to be able to read other people as it is to read. Now, given that I don't ever have to actually convince anybody that these skills are worth developing, allow me instead to translate. Put your listening ears on, use your words, learn to play nice with others and in the same sandbox. The fact of the matter is that these highly coveted social emotional skills are preschool skills, and they can be developed very early. Toddlers can be taught to understand other people's perspectives. 9-month-olds begin to show signs of empathy, and even very young infants are sensitive emotion detectors, able to sense others' emotions even before they can walk or talk. Now, before moving on, I should point out that it is the combination of me skills and we skills that fit the formal definition of emotional intelligence, described not only as 2 of the hottest words in corporate America, but recognized around the world as absolutely critical to thrive in all aspects of 21st century life. Next are the why skills, which obviously include asking the question why, but more broadly include exploration, curiosity, inquisitiveness, and asking all sorts of questions to better understand how the world works. Fueled by technology, the information age has now put so many answers right at our collective fingertips that it is no wonder that the ability to ask good questions has become so much more valued than simply knowing the right answer. As Albert Einstein put it, the important thing is to never stop questioning. Now think about some of the corporate training programs, like the 5 Whys, that train business leaders to better get to the root of a problem by repeatedly asking why. Implemented by some of the top companies in the world, these formal questioning and training techniques ironically leave one fundamental question unanswered. Why should we have to go to such great lengths to train adults to do something that comes so naturally to 2- and 3-year-olds? The answer, I'm afraid, is that we train this skill out of children. While it is natural for young children to question the world around them, making sure that they continue to see the world as a question mark very much depends on our commitment to encouraging rather than squelching their natural sense of wonder. When I think of will skills, I'm reminded of when my own 3 children first began school, and they became members of a club called the Can Do Club, which recognized young students not just for their grades, but for their drive and determination, both key aspects of will skills. Will is also about grit and perseverance, and it's evident in people with get the job done and stick with it attitudes. At the heart of will is motivation. Now, there are actually 2 types of motivation. The first, extrinsic motivation, involves rewards and punishments. While this approach may work in the short run, and for relatively simple tasks, the complex challenges of the 21st century are going to demand a lot more from our children. Simply relying on rewards has been shown to all but kill creativity and, in the long run, actually decrease motivation. Intrinsic or self-motivation is what we're really after, the kind of motivation that comes from within. To foster this kind of self-motivation, we perhaps need to rethink how we parent in the earliest years when even the most routine tasks, brushing teeth and peeing in the potty, are all too often rewarded with sweets and treats rather than with praise and pride. Now, you may not be accustomed to thinking of wiggling as a skill, but the best way to understand wiggle skills is to recognize that physical and intellectual restlessness go hand in hand. Just think about how we commonly describe successful adults as movers and shakers and go-getters who set stretch goals, spring into action, reach for the stars. They're all about action. If you read the innovation literature, you'll find that innovators are almost always described as physically restless. And at work, you're more likely to see walking meetings and treadmill desks and manipulatives on tables, all meant to more actively enhance our ability to think, create, and innovate. Now think about the words that we use to describe active young children: fidgety, antsy, restless. I can honestly say that in all my years working with children, I've never heard any of those words used in a positive sense. Whether out of fear for their safety or for our own convenience, we tend to favor the calm, quiet child who doesn't reach, touch, grab, or poke, or get into things. Instead of giving young children the wiggle room they need, we strap them in, we insist they sit still, and we tell them to look but don't touch. All of us, but most especially young children, learn about the world by physically interacting with it. Instead of working their wiggles out, what our children really need is for us to help them learn how to put their wiggles to work. After wiggle comes wobble, a set of skills defined by agility and adaptability and the ability to face, overcome, and learn from failure. The word wobble comes from a phrase, Weebles wobble but they don't fall down, a reference to a very popular classic toy called Weebles that are egg-shaped with a weight at the bottom so they could wobble back and forth but ultimately remain standing. As skills needed to adapt to a very rapidly changing world, wobble skills have gained special prominence. College applications and job interviewers routinely ask, when have you failed and what did you do about it? Silicon Valley's unofficial motto is said to be fail early, fail often, and fail forward, a motto that we really should be applying to how we raise young children. On that note, I want you to think for a moment, what might the earliest developmental milestones for wobble look like? But don't think too hard because there are none. The fact of the matter is that milestones only represent successes, not failures. If we want to raise resilient children, we need to get in the habit of celebrating not just their milestone moments, but their ability to fall down, brush themselves off, and get right back up again. The culmination of the key skills are what-if skills, or what I think of as possibility skills, defined by innovation, imagination, creativity, and out-of-the-box thinking. It's the what-if skills that give us the ability to imagine the world not just as it is, but as how it could be. In a global survey of over 1,500 CEOs, creativity was identified as the single most important factor for future success. Our world clearly rewards those who can imagine the world they want to live in and then create it. Young children excel at imagining new worlds, from make-believe and superheroes to imaginary friends and fanciful stories. Young children really are, as futurist Peter Diamandis puts it, some of the most imaginative humans around. But it has also been said that the creative adult is the child that survived. In our efforts to teach our children how we see the world, we run the very real risk of convincing them that there's only one right way to do or see things. We must therefore ask ourselves the question raised by developmental psychologist Jean Piaget. Are we forming children capable of only learning that which is already known? Or should we try to develop creative and innovative minds capable of discovery throughout life? I'm here to tell you the answer is the latter. Giving children the best is about maximizing their potential, not their possessions. It's about cultivating their sense of purpose and passion, not subjecting them to unnecessary pressure. And it's about caring, responsive adults and starting early. We now know that what happens in early childhood does not stay in early childhood. By applying what we now know about all of the key skills and applying it early, me, we, why, will, wiggle, wobble, and what if, I believe that we can achieve success in our shared goal of giving all children access to a world of possibilities. Thank you.
Right now we have come to how to improve communication. These points we need to remember, right? Improving pronunciation, as I have told you, could listen to many speeches or news, right? Channels, at least half an hour every day. So only through practice you can improve pronunciation and also change voice modulation and body language, that is non-verbal communication. But also communicators have to take care of how to improve body communication, how to maintain eye contact, or how to maintain distance, how to use postures or gestures. All these things can be learned through practice only, right? It is not theoretical. Communication skills are less theoretical and more practical things. No matter, right, the lecture can go on for another hour, but still people have to work on their own, and it's not a simple exercise, right? One has to exert oneself and one has to read more. So don't confine to your domains, go across the disciplines, because you are going to work in cross-cultural ambience and with people from different backgrounds. So read more as much as you can. In the forthcoming class, you can see a video on how to read a book a day. It's also a TEDx lecture. Listen more and interact with qualitative people. So don't while away your time hanging out with, right, while away time with people who are not significant in terms of your learning or improving. You have to choose your friends. You have to choose your books, you have to choose your friends, but you can't choose your neighbors. So you have to live and adjust with them. And you also can't choose the external conditions, you have to adjust to those conditions. So wherever it is possible, you interact with qualitative people, your teachers, or right, anybody who thinks they can help you professionally in preparing for competitive examinations. Simply improve vocabulary. Vocabulary can be improved through reading, right? Read newspapers, books, and work on Norman Lewis word power. There are many books, right, which we can share later on. So you have to consciously work on improving your vocabulary. So the more you read, the more vocabulary you gain. These days I find, right, many students don't read newspapers also. When we studied, our principal M.K. Ramakrishnan told us to read the Hindu newspaper daily. And he also gave a piece of advice to buy a dictionary, Oxford Advanced Dictionary by Hornby. We followed his advice truthfully and faithfully. And many people benefited, and later on they have occupied very high positions in our administration. Just practice meditation and good thoughts. It is very much required, right? Self-management is more important. These days when you feel anxious or nervous or distracted, even in online class I find people are very much highly distracted. So if you do meditation every day for 15 minutes, definitely you can improve your concentration. Concentration is a problem not only for children but also for adults like us. We also have to manage, right, our feelings or distracted thoughts. That is for everyone. Yoga helps you a lot in developing your concentration. And also you look presentable and confident. Don't think, right, whenever you go for interview, you have to be very confident. Whatever you may give right or wrong is a different thing. But you have to be very confident, and you should not be also shabby in appearance. You take all the care, you take care of your subject, you take care of your language, you take care of your appearance, and you also take care of, right, your attire and everything. So when you exert yourself to improve communication, definitely many of you can become very good communicators. Thank you. Right. I think I can stop here. So Sai Srinivas can take.
Basically, I was a Telugu medium student from my KG to degree graduation. But out of interest, I learned English and I tried to speak in English, to write English continuously. So now, from last 20-25 years, I'm able to speak English fluently. I'm able to write English pages together. I'm able to translate the pages together. Only it is by virtue of the practice. So many students who hail from complete Telugu medium, now they are doing the best presentations in English, their best work in English because of their interest in English. They learned English, they practiced English, they practiced vocabulary. This came only by interest, by practice. సో అన్నయ్య చెప్పారు, రోజు పేపర్ చదవండి, పేపర్ని చదివి ఈ పేపర్లో ఇచ్చిన vocabulary నోట్ చేసుకోండి, రోజు కొన్ని కొత్త పదాలను నేర్చుకోండి, లెర్న్ సమ్ న్యూ వర్డ్స్ ఎవ్రీ డే. అలాగే మీరు టీవీలో చాలా పనికిమాలవన్నీ చూస్తూ ఉంటారు, ఏమో అవి, కానీ టీవీలో చాలా లెక్చర్స్ వస్తాయి, అలాగే స్టోరీస్ వస్తాయి. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ నేషనల్ జియోగ్రాఫిక్ ఉంది, నేషనల్ జియోగ్రాఫిక్ లో ల్యాండ్స్కేప్ గురించి, స్పీషీస్ గురించి, ఎవల్యూషన్ గురించి, డిఫరెంట్ టాపిక్స్ వాళ్ళు ఎంతో బాగా నెరేషన్స్ ఉంటాయి. ఆ నెరేషన్స్ మీరు వింటే ఎంతో మంచి వొకాబులరీ వస్తుంది. అండ్ ఇట్ విల్ టెల్ యూ హౌ టు స్పీక్ అన్ సబ్జెక్ట్. ఇట్ విల్ గివ్ యూ ఎన్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ హౌ బెస్ట్ యూ కెన్ ప్రజెంట్ యువర్ సెల్ఫ్ బేసింగ్ ఏ కాన్సెప్ట్. అలా మీరు చాలా విషయాన్ని చూసి, విని, చదివి, రాసి నేర్చుకోవాలి. ఈ 4 చాలా LSRW చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్. అంటే ఇంగ్లీష్ రావాలంటే ఇవన్నీ రావాలి. సో మీరు ఫస్ట్ ఏంటంటే చాలా మంది పిల్లలు ఇంగ్లీష్లో మాట్లాడలేకపోవడానికి కారణం ఏంటంటే నేను మాట్లాడలేనేమో, నేను చెప్పలేనేమో అనే భయం చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్. ఆ భయాన్ని ముందు పోగొట్టుకోండి. ప్రతి ఒక్కరితో ట్రై టు కమ్యూనికేట్ ఇన్ ఇంగ్లీష్ ఎవ్రీ టైం. మాట్లాడడానికి ట్రై చేయండి. మీలో తప్పుని మీరే కరెక్ట్ చేసుకోండి, లేదా అడగండి, కరెక్ట్ చేసుకోండి, ప్రాక్టీస్ చేయండి. టెన్స్ని కరెక్ట్గా ఉపయోగిస్తూ, వొకాబులరీని కరెక్ట్గా ఉపయోగిస్తూ, యూసేజ్ని బాగా ఉపయోగిస్తూ ఉంటే మీ అంతటా మీరే లాంగ్వేజ్ని కరెక్ట్ చేసుకుంటారు. ఎనీ లాంగ్వేజ్ కమ్స్ ఓన్లీ బై వే ఆఫ్ ప్రాక్టీస్, బై వే ఆఫ్ స్పీకింగ్, బై వే ఆఫ్ కమ్యూనికేషన్ విత్ అదర్స్. యూ కెన్ ఇంప్రూవ్ యువర్ సెల్ఫ్. దట్ ఈస్ వెరీ ఇంపార్టెంట్. సెకండ్, నేను మాట్లాడలేను అనేటువంటి ప్రెజుడిస్ అనే భయం మీకు వచ్చినట్లయితే ఏ లాంగ్వేజ్ కూడా మీరు నేర్చుకోలేరు, మాట్లాడలేరు. దట్ ఈస్ వెరీ ఇంపార్టెంట్. ఫ్రమ్ నౌ ఆన్వర్డ్స్ better thing is you practice yourself to speak with others in English continuously and correct yourself. Then you will be fluent in very few days. That's very important type. And next, translating, writing, everything. When you are able to speak, you are able to write. When you are able to write, you are able to speak. They are interrelated. రెండింటికి సంబంధం ఉంది. బాగా మాట్లాడితే బాగా రాయగలరు, బాగా చదివితే బాగా గుర్తుంచుకుంటే బాగా మాట్లాడగలరు, బాగా రాయగలరు. అందుకే రీడ్ బుక్స్ అని చెప్పారు అన్నయ్య. రీడ్ బుక్స్, రీడ్ న్యూస్ పేపర్స్, రీడ్ స్టోరీస్, లెర్న్ ఇంగ్లీష్, లెర్న్ ద యూసేజ్, హౌ దే ఆర్ యూజింగ్. ఒక ఇన్స్టెన్స్ ని, కాంటెక్స్ట్ ని ఏ రకంగా యూజ్ చేశారు చెప్పడానికి కానీ, రాయడానికి కానీ, మాట్లాడడానికి కానీ, చదువుకోవడానికి కానీ, ఏ రకమైన కాంటెక్స్చువల్ యూసేజ్ జరిగింది అక్కడ. సిమిలీ ఉపయోగించారా, మెటాఫర్ ఉపయోగించారా, ఏ దాన్ని ఉపయోగించారు, ఆ పార్ట్ ఆఫ్ స్పీచ్ ఎలా ఉంది, టెన్స్ ఎలా ఉంది అనే విషయాన్ని మైండ్ లో ప్రింట్ చేసుకుంటే అదే ఇన్స్టెన్స్ మీకు రేపు గుర్తొస్తే యూ కెన్ యూజ్ ద సేమ్ యూజ్ సేమ్. దట్ ఈస్ వెరీ ఇంపార్టెంట్. లాంగ్వేజ్ ఎప్పుడు కూడా ఆ భాషని ఉపయోగించే విధానం తెలియాలి. ఆ సందర్భాన్ని ఏ మాటలు ఉపయోగించాలి, ఏ వొకాబులరీ ఉపయోగించాలి, ఏ కాలంలో ఉపయోగించాలి, ఏ టెన్స్ లో ఉపయోగించాలి అనే దాన్ని అప్లై చేయడంలో మీ ప్రాక్టీస్ తెలుస్తుంది. దట్ ఈస్ అబౌట్ మై ఒపీనియన్. ఇది వండర్ఫుల్ క్లాస్ రవీంద్రనాథ్, చాలా బాగుంది. కాబట్టి పిల్లలందరూ కూడా ఈ ప్రాక్టీస్ చేసి ముందు మీలో ఉన్న భయాన్ని పోగొట్టుకోండి. నేను మాట్లాడగలను అనే విషయాన్ని తెలుసుకోండి బై వచ్చి ఆఫ్ ప్రాక్టీస్. థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్ అన్న.
Thank you, Sai. So meanwhile, any student want to say something, please feel free, let us know. Okay, I read Mahesh Reddy name and Sai's name. Sure. I asked, Bhavani, okay, go ahead. Okay, Bhavani, you just speak also. We read your text, but you also unmute and speak. I'll give more screen space. There are 53 chat messages. So కొన్ని నేను రీడ్ చేస్తాను కొన్ని మెసేజెస్. It is very informative session, Annaya. Sadam Supraja says.
ఆమె ఉన్నారా? ఆ పేరు పిలవండి.
తర్వాత Arun Naik Nenawat has a message for the students also. BBC channel ni YouTube లో కూడా సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. That's correct. Perfect. అట్లా కూడా చేయొచ్చు.
వెరీ గుడ్.
మొబైల్లో వాచ్ చేయొచ్చు. సో ఎవరైనా మాట్లాడండి, అన్మ్యూట్ చేసి. 6:33 లక్ష్మీ కామేశ్వరి, యు ఆర్ రైట్. ఓకే, ఎవరైనా అన్మ్యూట్ చేసి మాట్లాడండి స్టూడెంట్స్.
కన్నడ వస్తుంది.
కన్నడ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ.
ఇంకోసారి మీకు యు నీడ్ నాట్ హెసిటేట్.
Pramila Subada also says it's very useful for us, Annaya. So తర్వాత కన్నడలో SB Raviteja says, sir, it's good.
ప్రమీల మాట్లాడమని చెప్పన్నా.
అందరికీ రాదు కదా. So let us use English. This is a class. Yes, someone is joining now. Actually, let us join like in the first few minutes by 9:45. Let us join. And
Anaya, I am Rajita Anaya. Today's class is very useful and interesting, Anaya. Thank you so much, Anaya, for conducting these classes, Anaya.
I think in between, some of you might have gone out of the system and again joining again. That is what is happening. Any other student, this is your time to voice yourself and be heard.
Good morning, Anaya.
Right.
Good morning, Anaya. Thank you for providing these classes, but because of network problem and technical problems, we have some disturbance to listen the class continuously, Anaya.
Okay, no problem. But thank you for that input. Yeah, Anu outside.
Anaya, please share the videos in the group, Anaya. YouTube videos.
Okay. We will share that. In fact, yeah, we will do it.
Okay, Anaya. Thank you, Anaya.
Okay, thank you, Bhavani. Okay, go ahead, Sampurna. You are also saying.
గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ అన్నయ్య. నాకు ఫిజిక్స్ సంబంధించినవి కొన్ని వీడియోస్ కానీ అంటే ఎంఎస్సి ఎంట్రన్స్ కి కొన్ని కావాలన్నయ్య.
We will take it up. English ఈ క్లాస్ మీద ఏమన్నా ఐడియాస్ చెప్పండి. Whatever you know about this class. Remaining we will.
చాలా క్లమ్జీ, అంటే క్లాస్ కొంచెం క్లమ్జీగా అనిపిస్తుంది అన్నయ్య. అంటే వాయిస్ అనేది డిస్టర్బెన్స్ వస్తుంది అన్నయ్య చాలా.
మీకు నెట్వర్క్
మధ్యలో కూడా మన పార్టిసిపెంట్స్ కొంతమంది జాయిన్ కావడం అనేది ఒక ప్రాబ్లం అయింది. లేకుంటే అది డిస్ట్రాక్ట్ లేకుండా అయితే అనేది we will consider that. We will.
ఓకే అన్నయ్య, థ్యాంక్ యూ అన్నయ్య.
I want to say one thing, Anaya.
Okay, carry on. Bhavani, continue.
ఇంకోసారి క్లాస్ స్టార్ట్ చేసేటప్పుడు 15 minutes ముందే స్టార్ట్ చేస్తే అందరూ యాడ్ అవ్వడానికి టైం ఉంటుంది అన్నయ్య. అప్పుడు ఏ డిస్టర్బెన్స్ ఉండదు.
ఈ రోజు ఈవెన్ ఫర్ లాస్ట్ 11 o'clock లో కూడా జాయిన్ అయ్యారు కదమ్మా. యు ఆర్ ఏబుల్ టు సీ దట్ హ్యాపెనింగ్. So that throughout they were joining, and we can actually make someone else respond. That is what Mahesh Annaya also was mentioning it. So we will handle that. The presenter screen will not be distracted by accepting you, but we will try to do it. So when a time is given, within that time everyone should join. In fact, I'm not speaking like a Japanese here. Some of the delegates went from different countries. Breakfast was between 7:45 to 8 a.m. and they went 1 minute late. The doors were closed. And that is their disciplined way that they do it. But rest of the world might have a different way of doing things. But Japanese way of doing things is they are total quality management. They follow timing exactly. Every second. 10 o'clock means exact 10 o'clock. We also, our aspiration is to show you the best way to go ahead. And we exactly started at 10 as promised today with introduction about Brother Ravindranath. We started from morning and around 9:30 onwards our system was open. As you felt, Bhavani, we were open from 9 o'clock actually.
ఓకే అన్నయ్య.
Anurana,
don't waste
I think
even
Pope, we can
minutes.
stop the recording now.
Right, we can do it. We can even edit it. Yeah, no problem.
Then that's fine.